Hello and welcome, everyone. This marks the third annual Tea Talks Diversity Speaker series. Thank you. My name is Rosemary Lerma. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a HESA doctoral student, and I'm also this year's president of our School of Education's Graduate Student Association. The aim of the Student Association is to be a voice for and the representatives of the graduate students in our community. We are a liaison for the graduate student community and the leadership in the School of Education. So, it is my great privilege today to introduce to you Dean Watson. Dean Watson is a HESA alumni, so we're very proud of that. And another fun fact is he's our 12th dean, and I understand through the grapevine that you wanted to be the 10th dean because it is a very ominous number. Hopefully the 12th isn't so bad. But I will hand over the mic to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Rosemary. It is a pleasure to be here and to have such a wonderful guest, distinguished guest, Dr. Melvin Terrell. And but first, Dr. Terrell, I just want to tell you who's in the audience. We have our past Dean Emeriti, Dr. Gonzalez, and we have faculty and department chairs and associate deans and wonderful students from across our college, an alumni, board member here as well, and just wonderful folk. And our development officer is right there, Natalie. I won't forget her. She's really important. But I want to say, first of all, thanks for everyone being here. It's an honor for you to be here. And it's also an honor to partner with our student organization for Tea Talks. They wanted to make sure this was a Tea Talk. And that's important, I think. And so, welcome, Dr. Terrell.
Thank you.
Now, I am going to introduce you. I'm not going to read both of these pages, so you're just going to have to be disappointed. Is that okay?
Of course.
And we're going to have a conversation, and our conversation is going to be special because we'll have a conversation and then you can ask questions. But I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Dr. Terrell. I didn't know that you had a secondary education degree. I found that out today. And so someone asked if you were a teacher, and I didn't know that. So Dr. Terrell earned his BS in education in 1971 in history and secondary education from Chicago State. He also has a Master's of Ed in college student personnel from Loyola University in Chicago. He is a proud Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity member. He's very proud of that. I just want to say that. Student affairs folk in the room will know that. He also received his PhD in higher education from Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. And he also did postdoctoral work at Harvard University and the University of Virginia. And he has held positions in Kennedy King Community College, Eastern New Mexico University, Chicago State, the University of Arkansas, University of Wisconsin, University of Toledo, and finally ended his last 20 years of his career as a vice president for student affairs at Northeastern Illinois University in Chicago, one of the longest reigning vice presidents, who was and is an African American serving in a PWI, predominantly white institution, which is now Hispanic serving, and he was part of that, bringing that along as well. He has provided over 40 years of mentorship and guidance to students, to deans, to vice presidents, and just been a champion for, I think, students of color, and specifically males. One of the things he's most proud of is receiving the Outstanding Contribution to Literature and Research Awards at NASPA, which is a big honor, and just wanted to throw that out there. He's received numerous other awards, and you can read about him online. You Google him and he comes right up. He also recently received an award a couple of years ago from the International Colloquium on Black Males in Education. He received that award for being one of the warriors to continue to champion and challenge individuals to make sure that Black males are included and supported in the educational process. And I'm proud to say that I asked him to serve on our advisory board, and he did. And we're having an advisory board starting tomorrow, but I'm even more proud of the fact that he has a book out about him. He did not write it, but a host of mentors and friends and colleagues contributed to this book, which talks about his outstanding skills as an individual, as a professional, as a leader, but just as a caring individual to make sure that there's a legacy left and that these individuals know about how to leave a legacy behind them. And so he's here to talk a little bit about those kinds of things. And so I'm going to pause now and just ask if you want to say anything before I begin to ask you questions and tell my story with you.
Okay, I was just going to say that in addition, I was recently profiled.
It's not modest.
By Diverse magazine, the cover.
Let me hold it for you.
Yes. The first African American Vice President of Student Affairs in the last 25 years that's been on the cover of this Diverse magazine. That's all I'm
So let me tell you, and I'll tell you a little bit about when I say he's not modest, because I used to think, gee, Dr. Terrell, you meet people and you want them to know who you are. He says, yeah, I want them to know my accomplishments. And so the importance of that, I think, is telling your story and in a way that students will know that it's possible. Anything's possible. And so I've come to love him for that in a unique way. I was in graduate school at Ball State working on my master's. And I came across a book, Diversity, I can't remember the title of it, Dr. Terrell, but Dr. Terrell and Doris Wright wrote a book on diversity and the importance of diversity in higher education. And I read it and I was just so enamored with it. Another book that I read
The title was From Survival to Success, Promoting Minority Student Retention. The first monograph that was published by NASPA dealing with minority students.
Thank you. You would get our chemistry soon. And so, and then I read Blacks in College by Jacqueline Fleming and was so enamored with that. And so we're at a NASAP conference, no, NASPA conference in Boston. And I heard that Dr. Terrell was there, and I don't remember the internet in 1989-90. I just don't. It may have been there, but I don't remember it. And so I would ask, who is he? What does he look like? And then finally someone said, there he is. I was up on the balcony floor and saw him and looked down and said, Dr. Terrell. And he looked around, and we struck up a conversation. I said, I read your book and just would like to talk to you some more. And so from that little seed grew a brotherhood, a friendship, professional colleagues who support each other down through the years. So that was 1990. So I've known him close now to 20 years. And one of the things that I just want to put out there is how important it was to have someone that you could connect to and connect with regards to mentoring. And so this book really is about mentoring and supporting. And so from that, we struck up a relationship where he became in charge of MUF, which is Minority Undergraduate Fellows Program for NASPA. And he asked me if I would coordinate that curriculum. I was a new as a new faculty. We wrote a monograph with Fran Stage, who was here. And from that, we just continued to develop professional, close relationship. And such things as I remember being an assistant professor with $400 to travel with, and him being a vice president, he said, well, I'll get a suite and you can stay with me. You know, you think that's very small, but that matters. And one time I said yes, and we had about 4 people in that room, and someone snored, and I won't tell you who, because he's an endowed professor now, and I went to get him. And so I went to the bathroom with the pillow and sheets, and I slept in the bathtub. We're all assistant professors, but I say that to you because travel funding, don't let anyone stand in your way. You were going to say something. I'll let you go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Okay, okay. So
I'll have my turn.
Okay. so with that, just never forget how important you can be in someone's life. And but I want to start with something, a question for you, Dr. Terrell. What sparked your interest as a young professional to even be involved with student affairs and have a commitment to underrepresented groups? What sparked your commitment there?
Well, let me first say that I taught school for about a year in Chicago public school system, and I was very dismayed because of discipline issues, and the principal gave me a superior rating, and he thought that I should reconsider, but I quit teaching and went back and got my master's from Loyola University of Chicago. And I thought about it when I was in college as an undergraduate. I finished my undergraduate degree program in 2 years and 10 months with my bachelor's degree. As you know, it takes people 4, 5, 6 years to get their degrees today. Yeah. I understand. So in my college years, the dean of students took an interest in me and said that, you know, you're a student leader, why don't you consider working on the college level one day? And I told him that, you know, I had an interest in being, you know, elementary school teacher, moving up being a school superintendent one day. But after that first year of teaching, I decided to move into student affairs. Then I got my degree from Loyola. Then I taught and was a counselor at a community college in Chicago. And one of the things about the city colleges in Chicago, they pay very well, but do not emphasize the importance of research and scholarship. And so I quit after 2 years and went back and got my PhD at the age of 27 in higher ed and Black Studies. Then I've gone to NASPA for a number of years, almost 40 years. And as a young man at the age of 27, there was discussion among my white colleagues who was going to write a book about minority student retention and the importance of it. And I said to myself that, you know, I'm going to do it. And you may have heard of Dr. George Koo. Well, Dr. George Koo was editor of the NASPA monograph series. And I talked with him about it, and one of my other colleagues, she was a young professional, Dr. Doris Wright, he said we both could co-edit a monograph on that series, and we did. And so I always wanted to achieve, to do the best, and that's one of the reasons why I obtained a PhD at 27. So I was able to move in a direction with my career to become a vice president, and was able to lay the landscape for student success. Because one of the things I've always wanted to do was to do research and scholarship in addition to being an administrator, which is unusual. And I was a tenured professor also at Northeastern University. I was professor of counselor education, and once a year I taught one graduate course, an introduction to college student personnel. So I think it's very important that as young professionals that you are able to write and partner with other colleagues with co-editing research in your field, because it's very important that we, what I'm known as a scholar practitioner, and I think that I did my administration. I worked with my directors, 10 of them reported to me, and I encouraged them also to not only do scholarship and research, but also to present at national conferences, workshops. so that you can get your name out there, and also you'll be able to meet other friends or professionals whereby you can move forth with your administrative and research and scholarship skills.
My other question is, it seems that institutions of higher education continue to have challenges with diversifying their student population. What have you found to work when you were Vice President of Student Affairs? Can you give us any tips?
Yes, well, I think it's very important that we try to create a academic supportive environment for our college students, particularly African Americans and minority students. Some of the ways that I've written about with my colleagues, example would be, faculty mentoring programs that involve students. One, faculty working with undergraduate students in research projects. Because I think it's very important that our undergraduate students not only become involved with projects outside the classroom, like student leadership development or getting involved with your academic clubs in the academic affairs arena. I think it's very important that we make a connection with faculty. And at Northeastern Illinois University, NASPA gave us an award one year for having an outstanding faculty student mentorship program. Also, I think it's very important that we encourage our students intentionally to get involved with student government or other student out of the classroom experiences, because that way you make a connection with diverse individuals in these organizations. And I also encourage you to take leadership roles in these positions, because you can learn quite a bit, whether it be improving your interpersonal skills with a diverse community. Second, learning about the importance of diplomatic and political skills. So these are some of the programs that I think is very important that we encourage our students to get involved, not only in the academic, but the non-academic environment on our college campuses.
The other unique thing about your history in life, Dr. Terrell, is you were Vice President of Student Affairs and you were committed to research, but you've worked with a lot of young junior faculty throughout your life. So what are some of the things that you would say resonated with the challenges you helped them through, and both of all, you've worked with all sorts of junior faculty. So what can you say about their development?
Okay, I think for about 7 years I was editor of a journal. It was called the NASAP Journal, and I was able to identify editorial board members, and I would identify, senior professors and also junior professors, so they could get the experience of evaluating, critiquing articles. Second, in my career, I would not be here if it wasn't for individuals like Dean Watson, because I could not do it on my own. In many of my projects, I have co-authors or several authors in reference to getting the word out through research and scholarship. I think it's very important that we uplift our professionals. And I was able to create a climate whereby I had the resources and the knowledge to identify individuals that would be mentors or mentees in my life. And they're better individuals, because many of my mentees have gone on to be not only full professors, endowed professors, but deans, vice presidents, and 2 of them are presidents of universities, because they came out of student affairs, but they were able to move into the presidency.
In this book, there are a number of chapters. Which chapter in this book, who wrote the chapter that you're most touched by?
Well, I would have to say that
It doesn't have to be me. I'm not fishing.
It's not you. I think there are 2. One was a colleague. She teaches at Texas Tech University. And I didn't know and don't remember I had said this. I made a statement to her that we have to be better than the best. Meaning that African Americans in particular, we have to be better than the best. And she wrote a chapter on that. And she talked about the importance of particularly African Americans doing their best, getting the degrees, doing their research, and making a contribution to the academy. The other chapter was with several of my mentees, and it was in reference to one of the things that happened when I was at Northeastern University. When I first became the vice president in 1988, the dean of the graduate college came to me and said she wanted me to travel abroad to recruit students and do lectures abroad. And I said that, now, I want to get accustomed to my job as the vice president. So within my 15th year as the vice president, she approached me again. We had written this grant to the U.S. Department of State to go to Tanzania. How many have been to Tanzania? Okay, well, I've been there, and we had written a grant with the U.S. Department of State to recruit about 10 of their faculty members to come to Northeastern University to get their master's degrees. Now, one of my mentees, who is Dr. Fred Barnum, who's an endowed professor at Prairie View A&M University, and he was at Rutgers University as an endowed professor. I called him and said, Fred, I'm going to Warsaw, Poland, Paris, France. Would you want to go with me? And so, his hotel cost was already paid for. He just had to pay, the university paid for his meals. Well, Fred Barnum, out of that trip, he's gone back to Paris at least 5 times to be a consultant at the university we visited. In a trip to, I'm going to get back to Tanzania. So I went to Marenga Teachers College, and I worked with the principal. We'd identified about 25 faculty. We interviewed them. And out of the 25, we were only supposed to like 10. The principal of Marenga Teachers College and I got in a discussion about this young Tanzanian professor. He was only about maybe 29. And I saw something in him that he could come to Northeastern, finish the program, and become a leader in the Tanzanian Ministry of Education. But the principal said that he saw this other individual who was more senior that could benefit from the program. And in discussion, finally in the discussion, the principal agreed with me that we would need to train our young professionals. And so to this day, this gentleman is now the assistant minister of Tanzania in education there. So I think it's very important that you are able to communicate and show the importance of education for our youth in the academy.
So we don't have anyone who's been, but I think we have some people who would like to go. So we will be tapping on you for that connection. How about that?
And that's no problem.
Okay.
No problem.
See, there's someone shaking their head already. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me just say that.
You go right ahead.
Let me just say that this book came out of, when I retired in 1988, Dean Watson was dean of the College of Education at Northern Illinois University, and he was one of the principal speakers at my retirement. So in my retirement speech, and it's written in there, I said that one of my mentees, Dr. Jolanda Jackson, said that he was writing a book about my career. And so years passed, 20 colleagues throughout the nation, endowed professors, full professors, have looked at my scholarship, my research, my administrative skills. The book is 458 pages. It outlines my commitment to diversity, to mentoring, to the importance of growing our own and lifting up individuals. So I'm very blessed and humbled and honored to have had a book, a fest strip. Anybody know what a fest strip is? Well, fest strip, why don't you tell them?
A fest strip, it's like a retirement party for an academic, singing their praises of
Yes.
their life's work.
It's a German term. Mm-hmm. So I'm very pleased and honored that Dean Watson also was a part of it. 15.
I wrote the forward. So,
And he wrote the forward in my home in Atlanta, when I was in Atlanta. He came to visit.
an interview.
And he wrote the forward there in my home in Atlanta. Well, many of you may not know, but I'm in Tampa, Florida now. I've been there for the last couple of years.
So I'm going to ask one more question. I know you have been committed to leaving a legacy, and you have recently worked on developing a foundation. Could you talk a little bit about that and the purpose of that?
Okay, well, Dean Watson is the founding director. It's called the Dr. Melvin C. Terrell Educational Foundation, Inc. The foundation was recently named after me. One of the board members made a motion, Dr. Terrell made the motion about a year and a half ago to rename the foundation. And the foundation is fundraising for African Americans and other minorities to attend graduate schools. In addition, we're able to provide and to develop grants in reference to enhancing the campus environment for HBCU students.
And one last question before I open it up. Sometimes you have people who will say and think and maybe not understand, will say, why do you focus on African American versus focusing on all students? How do you respond to that?
Well, I respond to that by saying that we all have a certain niche. And as I said earlier, when I was a young man going to NASPA, when I heard non-black professionals asking who is going to write about us, a person like me, I took that as a charge that I was going to make as a part of my legacy, the importance of writing about the importance of African American students on college campuses and how we can improve the environment. Dr. Terrell talks about a sense of belonging. I want to make sure through my research and through my scholarship that we, in PWIs in particular, are able to develop supportive programs for successful experiences of this particular category of students. I mean, no apology.
Thank you. Are you ready for questions from the audience?
Yes, sir.
He's ready. Okay, he's ready. So, any questions? Do you guys have any questions? Any comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
You can hear me.
Okay.
You worked 1 year in public school,
Yes.
K-7 in K-12.
7th grade social studies.
Okay, any time after that in K-12 program?
No.
What did you use this experience to teach the teachers that were going to go back? I mean, you walked away from the people that needed you most.
Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. No, I didn't want to deal with the discipline issues in the inner city of Chicago. And so I made a conscious decision to leave elementary education and make my career in higher education.
Yeah, you switch careers.
Yes.
Other question? Yes, thank you.
I'm thinking about the poster for this talk, and it has the word balance on it.
Yes.
You are hugely accomplished across a span of years. What does balance mean to you, and how do you maintain it?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Most of my colleagues know I work out on a regular basis. I think it's very
4:30
important.
in the morning.
Yeah, I think it's very important that you balance your life in student affairs in particular, because you can get burnt out. I think it's very important also that you have supervisors, because what we didn't talk about was that I had supervisors that recognized my talent. I've been an American Council on Education Fellow, better known as an ACE Fellow at the Florida State University. I went there for 3 primary reasons. Intercollegiate athletics, I wanted to learn more about that, fundraising and development, and assessment and academic affairs. And upon my return from Florida State University, the president at Northeastern Illinois University transferred Intercollegiate Athletics Division I to under my supervision. Also, I've been to Harvard several times, and the university paid for all this. They saw something in me that they wanted to groom and grow. Some individuals may ask, why wasn't I a college president? It was by choice, because I wanted to leave a legacy in writing. We have many college presidents, not many of them, and not many VPs for student affairs, whether black or white, has had a book dedicated to their legacy. So I think it's very important that you balance your life and that you exercise, raise a family, do fun things. I've traveled the world. So it's very important to have balance in your life, and I've had that and continue to have balance.
Can you talk about the foundation that you were given when you came of this world and in this world?
Yes. Well, I'm the oldest of 6 children. We all grew up on the west side of Chicago. Many of my relatives thought we were going to not be anyone of importance. But I think it's very important that my parents, they instilled in us the importance of education. So as a young man, I knew that you could get a PhD, and I said, one day I'm going to get one. And all of us have success. My brother, a law degree from Vanderbilt. He's retired a judge in Chicago. My sister has a master's in health sciences. She just retired as a head director of a clinic at the University of Chicago. Brothers and sisters, a librarian, school teacher, and a brother that had his own trucking business. So I had the encouragement of my parents. Also, I just happened to be a Catholic, went to elementary and secondary Catholic schools, and then instilled the importance of studying and making a difference in our society. The whole issue of social justice is very important in my life, and making a difference not only in my life, but other individuals, professionals, students. Yes.
So, looking into the future, what do you see for academic affairs and student affairs partnerships in the future of higher education?
Okay, I think it's very important that, let me give you an example. What we didn't say was, I'm not only written about minority affairs or minority students in higher education. I co-edited the first book on fundraising and development in student affairs. So I think it's very important that academic and student affairs, we all are professionals, and that more individuals in student affairs can also do grants and research. Because as campuses deal with budget shortfalls, another way of getting funds is through research and grants development. So I think it's very important that in the future that we team up with academic affairs faculty with developing and working through the Office of Sponsored Research with working on research and grants. Second, I think it's very important that I mentioned earlier the importance of mentoring and outreach with faculty as it relates to students. Because faculty can be very resourceful to students, particularly students of colors, in the area of career development. Encouraging them to get involved and move on to get masters and PhDs in particular disciplines. In this environment with budget shortfalls, student affairs and academic affairs, individuals will have to work even more. And that's one of the reasons why, as a vice president of student affairs, I reported directly to the president. But in some major universities, the VP for student affairs reports to the provost. So it depends on the organizational structure, but certainly young individuals like you need to be encouraged to teach, research, scholarship, and do your work if you're in student affairs.
So kind of along those same lines, what are some of the challenges you see for those working in higher education student affairs?
Well, some of the challenges are not being respected of the work that you do. Because I know that it was one other person in that book that I wanted to to mention, Dr. John Shue. How many of you heard of him? Well, Dr. John Shue has an article about me. He said that I'm one of the hands up in the nation that has the background experience. So he mentioned, I mentioned his name for a reason, because in the chapter when you read it, he said that he had written his first article when he was working in housing at this particular university. Instead of his VP commending him on that work, that was nothing that was ever said. He wanted to find out, he wanted to talk to him about an issue in residents' life. So the point I'm making is that we need to be more valued with what we do to enhance the lives of our students. And one of the ways that you can do that is, as I mentioned earlier, if you're able to show that you can write a grant and get fundings for drug education, alcohol education, grants that will enhance the environment of our college students, I think that you can be more valuable as a participant. Because one of the things that I didn't want to do is to have a 9-to-5 job, come home and everything is, but I wanted to have a more diverse life. And I think that it's very important that as student affairs professionals that we look at not only working from 9 to 5, but also doing things that can enhance the environment of yourself, so that one day you can move up to be a dean or vice president or president of the university. So I would encourage our bosses to recognize the talent and encourage the talent. And also, I mentioned earlier too, to encourage individuals that have the talent to get involved with professional organizations, become part of the ACE fellowship program and other programs that can enhance your professional development so that you can move up and not stay stuck in a particular position.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Terrell, I think we have a mutual friend in Art Sandine who was Vice President for Student Affairs Florida for us for a long time.
Yes.
And he used to say that student affairs is the conscience of the institution. Come talk with me. Do you have any thoughts on what he might have meant by that, or do you have any thoughts on what that means yourself?
Well, yes, I know our St. Dean book was written about him. And we are the fabric of the university. And I say that because students spend most of their lives outside of the classroom. And we have to create environments for them to be successful. That they'll be able to go out into a global society, whether it be the US or abroad. Also, I didn't mention it, but it is important that we have programs, and we are having more programs at HBCUs where students are allowed and are able to go abroad and learn about the experience abroad. So, in addition, we owe it to our students to help them to navigate through the system. Because outside of the classroom, there are many, many opportunities that students can have. And I think that it's very important that we, as leaders, academic and student affairs leaders, create the fabric in our institutions for our students to be successful. Yeah.
You taught in the public schools, attended private parochial school. There's a lot of, I'm not an academic, but you see a lot in the papers today about funding tensions between public versus private schools and voucher programs and that kind of thing.
Charter programs.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about sort of the tension between public and private institutions, what they can learn from one another, or how this should be addressed?
Well, I think that it depends on the state that you're in. I think that we need to have options for our parents so that their students can attend the type of school they want them to attend. My parents felt it was important for us to attend a parochial school. We could have gone to public schools. I know that we're dealing with tight budgets, and charter schools, private schools, public schools, hopefully they all are in the business of educating and making sure our students are able to communicate and also move into high school and college.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't have any opinions about issues around gateway courses for undergraduates on this I've been asked to look into this and been studying it on this campus. The 64% of the African American students fail to pass finite mathematics. It's a huge, huge obstacle for many majors. The national debate is around getting rid of remedial courses, the sort of remedial ghetto from which many kids never escape, and moving into supplemental services. But even with supplemental services, that's been a very resistant number. And I wonder if you have thoughts and perspectives on what we should be doing, what we could be doing on what is there. 30% average student is still a very high failure rate, but 64% across the past 5 years is very problematic on this and many other campuses.
Well, I know that at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, they have a program where they're educating and encouraging more African Americans to get involved with mathematics. But this whole issue of remedial education, supplemental education, it all deals with funding and where you're going to put your monies in the department or the university. There's many summer programs that students can attend to enhance their mathematical skills, or engineering, STEM projects. The federal government's funding many of these programs in reference to enhancing more minorities to get involved with engineering, mathematics studies. I think as you do your research, you're going to find many models of how you can look at helping this particular group of students to improve their techniques in this field.
Other questions? So, Dr. Terrell, I have another favor to ask of you. If you asked a question, I need you to just stand because we need to get something, or at least come up to the front after this is over. We would like for you to sign books. We have books for those individuals who ask questions. And we would like for you to sign those books.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Dion is the department chair and vice provost. Both the vice provost. So we do many things here at Indiana University. Okay.
I have a question about, could you talk about one of your most challenging situations with diversity at your institution and how you were able to handle it?
Okay. Well, when I was at Northeastern Illinois University, this particular group of students wanted to go out of the country to learn more about their culture. And the student government funded the project. So what happened was I had to have my director of student activities do a little research. And we found out that the University of Chicago had this seminar, this museum dedicated to their culture. And I met with them and told them that, you know, this was an inordinate amount of money to be spent going abroad. And I, you know, made a suggestion, you know, the University of Chicago. Then they threatened me that they were going to go to their lawyer they didn't approve of my decision on it. So it was written up in the papers, but I had more people that agreed with my decision than with the student and the student government. There was one other issue. When I was a young professional at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh, Ku Klux Klan wanted to come and demonstrate on campus. And what happened was, I had to meet with the student group, and I told them about, you know, if you're able to find the funds to pay for security, you know, they're welcome to come. And they couldn't get the funds because we were concerned about the welfare of all students, particularly African Americans and other, even Jewish students were concerned about it. So, but the whole thing of dealing with these type of issues, you have to work with the students, work with a committee to determine what is the best direction to take. The last thing that happened in my professional career was, I mentioned that Intercollegiate Athletics Division I was at Northeastern Illinois University. Well, with shortfalls of budgets, the chairman of the board met with myself and the president and said that we need to do away with sports. And he basically said, you know, you're on board or you're off board. Well, the president and I both wanted to keep our jobs because we felt we were doing something. So what happened was I was told to dismantle Intercollegiate Athletics. And we made it on the front of Sports Illustrated. We had to work, it took about a year. The athletes were able to go to other institutions for their scholarships, but there was really demonstrations on campus, media came out. But what we did was we put it in the framework of that more of our students, meaning intramural sports and activities, would be able to use, you know, the fine facilities that we had developed for Intercollegiate Athletics 1. But that was a horrible experience for me. It took a year and took a lot of time with talking to parents, the coaches, helping them to find jobs. So in my professional career, you know, I've dealt with many critical things, but one of the things that I learned was that you need to work with your committee structure that we have in higher education, and they can help you with recommendations. But ultimately, the decision is between you as vice president or the president of the university.
Thank you. This, Dr. Terrell, this is another question? No? This is my first tea talk. I don't know how it was supposed to go, but I've enjoyed it.
It was great.
This is great.
Yes.
So we did fine. We excelled. We were better than great. How about that? So
I'm speechless.
So thank you so much for your presence and your time. And can we give Dr. Terrell a round of applause?